ranking member of Armed Services and former Secretary of the Navy. In Detroit is Senator Carl Levin, Democrat of Michigan and Chairman of Armed Services, member of the Select Intelligence Committee. And in Phoenix, Senator John Kyle, Republican of Arizona, member of the Senate Intelligence Committee and a ranking member of the Judiciary Committee Subcommittee on Technology, Terrorism, and Government Information. We'll start with Joe Biden and run down all four. Senator, your reaction to the events of today?
Going off as planned, I got a chance to speak to the White House and the CIA and the State Department. We're not going to know until, well, we're probably learning right now based on reconnaissance what damage was actually done. I feel pretty good about what's happened so far. It's a beginning, Larry. There's a long way to go, and seems successful so far.
Senator Warner?
Well, I was called, like many others, by the Secretary of Defense this morning, and how proud I am of our president and 40 nations that have bonded together to help stamp out this terrorism. And tonight, right as we're speaking, because I just talked to the Pentagon again, men and women, the Armed Forces of the United States, Great Britain, and pledges from others are carrying out successfully their mission. Larry, we gave every possible warning to the Taliban. They failed to adhere, and now it's not just the United States, but the whole world is turning against them. And I hope those of the Muslim faith will recognize it's not against them, and they're in a good position to help us better understand and to perhaps give us the intelligence necessary to stop bin Laden and the Al-Qaeda.
Concerning bin Laden, Senator Levin, in a taped message, we believe obviously it was stated after September 11th, but before the events today, bin Laden said that America will never dream of security until the infidel armies leave the land of Mohammed. America was hit by God in one of its softest spots. America is full of fear from its north to its south, its west to its east. Thank God for that. What do you make of that comment?
It's just more of the same. We've got a long road to defeat terrorism in this world, but we've made a beginning today, going after him, going after his operatives, and doing it in the right way. It's very clear that the administration understands that our first goal, of course, is to get after bin Laden, to get after his operatives, and to make Afghanistan no longer a haven for terrorists. But it's also important, and I think Secretary Rumsfeld made this very clear this morning, that if possible, that Islamic countries take the lead here, or at a minimum, that the Afghan people be the tip of the spear to remove bin Laden, because that will prove the propaganda lie that he's been trying to spread, that somehow or other this is a war against Islam. It is not. It is a war of the civilized world, including Islam, against terrorism, and it's very helpful, and I think very practical if the people of Afghanistan can be the ones who throw out bin Laden and destroy him, because that would really show the propaganda for what it is that bin Laden's trying to spread to the streets in the Islamic world.
I don't know what the average citizen can do about it, Senator Kyle, but should we governmentally be concerned about retaliation?
It's the wrong word, Larry. The September 11th attack on the United States was not in retaliation for anything. It's because they hate us. And they have additional attacks planned, I'm sure, and they've been planned for a long time, not knowing what action the United States might take. So we have to do what we have to do and fully expect that the terrorists will strike again. But it's not in retaliation to what we do. It's because they intended to do us harm. The only way we're going to end this kind of terrorism is first to strike at bin Laden and the Taliban, and then go to the source, the base of operations throughout the rest of the world that harbor and support these terrorists, and bring that to a stop as well.
Senator Biden, Cristiano Mpor gave us the report, as others have said, that we're dropping food and medicine to displaced Afghans inside Afghanistan. Is that going on? Is that confirmed? And do we know they're getting it?
We don't know yet where they're getting it, but there's 350,000 of these meals that can sustain a person for a day that are being dropped, Larry. And, you know, I think it's an important point to make that the mayor made. It is supposition that we are going to be attacked again. We do not have, I don't want the American people thinking the CIA, I was on a secure line tonight with them. I don't want anyone thinking that we know that there's another New York planned, we know a specific deal going on. We assume we assume that they'll continue, whether or not we respond to them, to repeat the kinds of things they've done. But we do not have. It is supposition now. So this notion that Americans should be fearful and not go about their daily lives tomorrow morning would be a gigantic mistake. People should go about their daily lives. And the way we're going to end this is we suck the oxygen out of the air these guys breathe by shutting down havens for them like they have now in Afghanistan with the Taliban as their protectors.
And Senator Warner, to back up what Senator Biden just said, we've just confirmed that 2 C-17s have dropped relief supplies down. Is that something you support? And are you sure it's going to go to the right place?
As sure as we can be. In my discussions today with the military experts, we've done a lot of practicing in the last year on how to successfully airdrop and target, almost like precision munitions, those drops to where they belong. You know, this, I think, is the first time in contemporary military history where a military operation is being conducted against the government of a country, and simultaneously with the troops carrying out their mission, other troops are trying to take care of the innocent victims who all too often are caught in harm's way. That's to the credit of the American people. That's a clear example to the Muslim world of how we care for people, irrespective of their background or their religion. We are a peace-loving nation. And I want to pick up on another thing that the mayor of New York said. What a marvelous man he has been throughout this whole tragic episode. But we were talking about what can you do? Yes, we go back to our normal life, but America has grown up. We're more cautious now for ourselves and our children, but we go about our way of life holding our head high. Tonight I attended a prayer vigil for those who suffered at the Pentagon and for those first responders that came. And as I sat there, I said to myself, this is a clear difference between America and so much of that world that perceived us to hate us. And I hope every citizen, yes, we have an intelligence problem, but think of yourselves as an agent, not to spy on your neighbor, but just to judiciously report to those in authority if you see something suspicious, because we're all in this together and we all want to survive.
Senator Levin, at this point, what is Congress's role?
To be very supportive of the President, to give him and our military all the resources that they need, to help our intelligence.
I'm going to interrupt you, Senator Levin. We have a special press setup here with a B-52 lead pilot, a B-52 bombardier, an offensive weapons system officer, and a refueler pilot might be in progress. Let's join it. This all was part of the mission today.
I think we're ready once to start.
We've got a teleprompter. Unfortunately, it's not just a city.
This is obviously set up by phone.
Pastoral scene.
Can we start with Woodstock on the bombing run? Could you tell us what your personal experience was today?
Oh, okay.
What did you? What did it feel like? What did you think?
I did not know that.
Did they hear?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm trying to answer your question. It's a little difficult for us. We train for this eventuality. We certainly don't look forward to it, but we're equipped to handle it when it comes to us. And so today, what I was thinking about more than anything was the mission handed before us, the fabulous training that I've received throughout my career, and the safety of my crewmates. And all those things came together, and it was as we had trained for. And so it was like what we practiced to do. It all came together just perfectly.
How did it come together?
Well, again, the tremendous training that we received through the support.
Steve, I don't know whether you can hear me or not. Hopefully you can. I'd like to try to take this thing from the top. I have no idea what these maps look like.
Please. Whoever's talking about the maps, please get off the phone.
Thank you.
Stinky, go ahead, please. Or Woodstock, sorry.
Again, it all came together because we train for this. This is what America's citizens expect us to be able to do. And in peacetime, we prepare for these eventualities. And then today, we had all the moving parts from the people who...
all life from our planet and eventually destroying the planets themselves, before finally exploding itself.
It's going to happen. One day our sun will die, and when it does, we'll go with it. It's time to think about the future.
And now, the Taliban will pay a price.
From somewhere in hiding, there was the face of defiance. We don't know when Osama bin Laden taped this or from where, but the message was chilling, a call to arms in the Muslim world and a warning. Americans may never feel safe again. At home tonight, even tighter security, reprisals anticipated. We're seeing the bad guys doing the same things they did in the days before September 11th. And officials are on edge in cities across the country. All are on alert. We'll be joined tonight by Judy Woodruff in Washington and our entire team of CNN correspondents, both here in the United States and around the world. Quickly, though, we want to first touch bases both in Afghanistan and in Washington. Just a quick headline, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get back to all of you in a moment. We begin first with Kamal Haider on the phone from Afghanistan. Kamal.
Yes, Aaron, it's morning here, and it's been a busy night for most people here. Of course, you're aware that Kandahar has come under attack almost for 4 times. There were 4 waves of attack. They came the space between 1 hour to 1.5 hours between each strike, keeping most of the city very tense and on the edge. At one point, people started to move out of the city. That, I think, is going to be something to watch out for, because people were just feeling comfortable, the civilian population feeling comfortable that they were going to be safe and were returning into the city. Reports from there indicate that no civilian target was hit, that indeed all the targets hit were military, but the body count has not started.
Okay.
And I think Kandahar will be, yeah.
Kamal, hang on. We'll get back to you in a little bit. I want to quickly go to Jamie McIntyre. He's at the Pentagon. Jamie, any damage assessment yet?
Not yet, although with the daylight hours, the Pentagon will be sending up spy planes and using spy satellites to see what they hit and what they might have missed and what might need restriking. With the nighttime hours over, the nighttime bombing is over. All of those runs have been completed. The pilots are back safely, but Pentagon officials say they expect to continue to strike Afghanistan for at least a few days. Aaron?
All right, Jamie, we'll get back to you to review what happened on Sunday in a moment. Let me go next to Chris Burns. Chris is in northern Afghanistan in an area controlled by the Northern Alliance. That's a hugely important piece in the puzzle that is being built now. Chris?
Aaron, bright flashes of light, one after the other, for 6 hours last night from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. in a coordinated effort between the coalition forces from the air as well as on the ground by the Northern Alliance. We saw plenty of Katyusha rockets striking at various positions of the Taliban along the front line north of Kabul. The Northern Alliance says that the airstrikes were aimed at radar, air defense, air bases in the north and south. Obviously a coordinated effort. No damage assessment yet from their angle. That's why they're holding back on any advance. But they do plan to advance very shortly in the coming days once they can assess exactly what kind of damage was done to the Taliban. Aaron?
Chris, we'll get back to you for more on the Northern Alliance and their role as we go along. Next to Islamabad, Christiane Amanpour is there. Hard to overstate the importance of reaction in Pakistan this morning. Has it started to come in?
Well, clearly the government here is going to be keeping a very close eye on the street today, following a few scattered demonstrations in the early hours of this morning, following those U.S. and British strikes on Afghanistan. The demonstrations were, as I say, small. They were heavily outnumbered by police, and they ended fairly quickly. But today is going to be a test, according to the government. President Musharraf, in a previously scheduled news conference, is scheduled to hold that now in 3 hours' time. We'll hear more from him on what happened overnight. And the government here has already issued a statement saying that it regretted the Taliban had failed to take the right decisions, thus incurring military action, that it hoped the military action would end quickly with little damage, no damage to the Afghan people, and that afterwards there will be a reconstruction effort by the international community in Afghanistan, Aaron.
And Christiane will be back with you literally in a minute or so to the White House, our senior White House correspondent, John King. John, the headline from there tonight.
Aaron, we're told the president continues to receive updates on the bombing runs, also on the humanitarian airlift. Those early reports, senior officials say, are sketchy but encouraging. Still, we are told very early tomorrow morning the president will again, at a public event here at the White House, tell the American people this is a campaign that will, at a minimum, last months. He will also try to reassure the American people, Aaron, the government is doing all it can to prevent future terrorism here in the United States, but that the risk, especially now that the military campaign is underway, remains high.
Okay, John, will be getting back to you, John King, at the White House tonight. All right, those are the headlines, both Afghanistan, Pakistan, and in Washington. Now we'll go back to the Pentagon. We'll slow down a little bit and unravel all that went on Sunday. Military Affairs correspondent Jamie McIntyre up next. Jamie, run down for us now what the U.S. and the British forces did on Sunday.
Well, today, Defense Secretary Rumsfeld said that the only way to deal with terrorism is to take the battle to where they are and to root them out. And today, the Pentagon embarked on a military campaign that was designed to do just that.
The attack began with a volley of roughly 50 cruise missiles from 4 U.S. Navy surface ships and 2 submarines, 1 American, 1 British. Some 25 strike planes from 2 U.S. aircraft carriers followed, along with long-range bombers, including U.S. Air Force B-52s and B-1s flying from the British base at Diego Garcia. A pair of B-2 stealth bombers flew from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, each capable of dropping 16 satellite-guided bombs before landing at Diego Garcia. The goal?
To make clear to the Taliban leaders and their supporters that harboring terrorists is unacceptable and carries a price.
The missiles and planes hit dozens of targets across Afghanistan, with concentrations near 3 major cities, Kabul, Jalalabad, and Kandahar, where the Taliban has its headquarters. Pentagon sources say the targets included surface-to-air missile sites and early warning radars to ensure the U.S. has control of the skies, suspected terrorist training camps that were carpet-bombed by B-1s and B-52s, Taliban airfields and their aging MiG aircraft, and an area in the north where the Taliban had a concentration of tanks and troops fighting the Northern Alliance. That's another part of the U.S. strategy.
And to alter the military balance over time by denying to the Taliban the offensive systems that hamper the progress of the various opposition forces.
The initial strikes did not target Osama bin Laden, but that may be next. Pentagon officials hint special forces could be sent in to capture or kill him.
I want to remind you that while today's operations are visible, many other operations may not be so visible. But visible or not, our friends and enemies should understand that all instruments of our national power, as well as those of our friends and allies around the world, are being brought to bear on this global menace.
While early reports indicate the military strikes were successful, the Pentagon insists they are only the opening shots in what will be a long war.
The fact is, in this battle against terrorism, there is no silver bullet. There is no single thing that is going to suddenly make that threat disappear. Ultimately, they're going to collapse from within.
Now, just a short time ago, the Pentagon confirmed that another unique part of this mission, humanitarian airdrops of food, had also been completed. 2 C-17s flying from Germany have dropped more than 37,000 humanitarian daily rations packets in Afghanistan. Meanwhile, Pentagon officials say the bombings will continue for a few more days, at times during the daylight hours, to keep the Taliban leaders on the run and send the message that they have no sanctuary, even in the daytime hours. Aaron?
Jamie, do you have a chance to listen? I know you've been busy tonight, to listen at all to the pilots, the few pilots who talked to reporters on their return to the carrier?
Very interesting. We heard a lot of, these were pilots actually that returned to Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. These were B-1, B-52 pilots. And they, one of them told an interesting story. He apparently seemed to be from New York. His call sign was Woodstock. And he said that on the nose of his B-52, where they have nose art painted on there, that they had recently repainted it with the words NYPD, we remember.
That's a great little note. Thank you, Jamie. Jamie McIntyre, a long day at the Pentagon today. Thank you. In Washington with us tonight, our friend and colleague Judy Woodruff. Judy?
Hello there, Aaron. Well, just a moment ago, you did talk to John King at the White House. Let's go back to John now. John, you were saying that the White House, the president, is just beginning to get in some sketchy early reports of how successful these early runs have been.
That's right, Judy. Officials stressing very sketchy early reports, mostly anecdotal evidence from the pilots as they return to base. Any other data the military can get at this moment. Daytime in Afghanistan now, the next 10 to 12 hours, most critical in building that battle damage assessment. All this as the president monitors developments back here at the White House now. He was at Camp David over the weekend, and you will remember he said from the very beginning that the terrorists struck on their timetable and that he would strike back on his. He made that decision, we are told, over the weekend up at Camp David after his military team told him everything was in place for the attacks and after one last strategy conversation with the British Prime Minister, Tony Blair.
A festive mood in Baltimore, Cal Ripken's final game. Among those cheering in the stands, the House Democratic leader, Dick Gephardt. It is 7:30 p.m. Saturday, an urgent phone call from Camp David. President Bush is calling congressional leaders and tells Gephardt he has given the go order for strikes inside Afghanistan. 9 p.m. inside the presidential retreat, Mr. Bush talks with top aides about a Sunday address to the American people. 12 hours plus later, at 9:45 a.m. Sunday, U.S. warplanes are secretly en route, and the president sticks to schedule, paying tribute to firefighters killed in the line of duty. No hint of what's to come, but a special reflection on those who stormed into the World Trade Center on the morning of September 11th.
Within a single hour, more than 300 firefighters were lost, and our nation still mourns.
A solemn wreath laying at the firefighters' memorial, then quickly back to the White House, 10:36 a.m., ahead of schedule. In the Oval Office, this to a senior aide, a reference to Afghanistan's ruling Taliban. Quote, I gave them a fair warning. Mr. Bush quickly worked the phones. King Abdullah of Jordan, Prime Minister Sharon of Israel, and Presidents Chirac of France, Putin of Russia, and Musharraf of Pakistan among those informed that strikes were imminent. 12:40 p.m., these images from Afghanistan, missiles and anti-aircraft fire in the skies over Kabul. 12:41, just a minute later, the first official confirmation.
We are beginning another front in our war against terrorism, so freedom can prevail over fear.
And at 1 p.m., the president from the White House Treaty Room.
The United States military has begun strikes against al-Qaeda terrorist training camps and military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan.
Mr. Bush made clear this was just the beginning.
Initially, the terrorists may burrow deeper into caves and other entrenched hiding places. Our military action is also designed to clear the way for sustained, comprehensive, and relentless operations to drive them out and bring them to justice.
In that speech, the president asked the American people for patience in the months ahead. And the White House is also asking Americans to be on alert. Quote, this is war, said one senior official, stressing the risk of terrorism here at home remains high. Judy?
John, and on that front, how much is the White House talking about that, about how much? I mean, there was already a heightened sense of alert, awareness coming off of September the 11th, but after today, how much are they talking about it?
Well, they're telling us things. Some things they will tell us, others they won't. They say there is a continued threat. They say no specific or credible threat that they know of against the White House or the Capitol, any federal installations, or anywhere across the United States. The plan was in place and it was implemented that the FBI would put federal law enforcement on its highest level of alert and call around the country asking states to do so as well. That happened, and the president tomorrow, Judy, will swear in the new director of the Office of Homeland Security. That's the former Pennsylvania Governor Tom Ridge. His job is coordinating the federal government's response to the terrorist threat, and in case there does happen terrorist strikes, a very difficult job already, a very difficult time now, because officials anticipate the terrorists might try to strike again now that the United States has retaliated.
All right, John King at the White House, and now we want to go back to Islamabad, Pakistan, where CNN's Christiane Amanpour, we saw her just a moment ago, speaking with Aaron. Christiane, you were saying that the government is going to be looking at the streets of Islamabad.
Well, you can imagine that very clearly they will be doing so. Let me just show you the morning papers. As you can imagine, this attack having started in the evening, early enough for the newspapers, it is all over the front of the newspapers with the subheadline about the Taliban vowing to fight back and about Pakistani supporters and sympathizers last night already calling for a holy war to combat this. Now, these are not just headlines, but this is a turning point for Pakistan as it continues to gauge public opinion. It had the situation under control, it felt, over the last 3 weeks as it stood with the United States, but that was before any military action started. They were always looking to see what would be the development once military action started. Well, today is the day when they'll be able to start seeing that. There have already been scattered demonstrations overnight in the early hours of this morning, not only close to Islamabad, but in Peshawar, near the Afghan border, near Jalalabad, and in Lahore and various other places here. So far small, contained, they quickly ended. They were heavily policed. Also, in the last 48 hours, the government here has arrested, put under house arrest, one of the leaders of the main extremist, if you like, hardline Islamic parties who had been calling out demonstrations over the last few weeks, very vociferous against the government, very anti-United States and pro-Taliban and pro-Osama bin Laden. So they've silenced him as best they can for the moment, and they're waiting to see what the reaction will be. President Musharraf, who, as you know, obviously had thrown his lot in with the international community, is scheduled to hold a press conference, a previously scheduled press conference, in just under 3 hours from now. From him, we will hear more about what happened last night and about what he's feeling about the current situation. The government here already last night met in an emergency session. The cabinet issued a statement through the foreign ministry saying that they regretted that it had come to military action, but that the Taliban had failed to make the right decisions to avoid that. They went on to say they hope this operation ended soon, that it would cause minimal damage to Afghan people, and that they hoped afterwards that the international community would do all it could, maximum effort for national reconciliation and reconstruction in Afghanistan. On one other note, and we have yet to confirm this ourselves, but on the wires, the Taliban ambassador here, who has been basically speaking throughout the evening, has said to the Associated Press wire that there are civilian casualties. This does not square with what we've been told by our Kamal Haider just a few moments ago from Kandahar, which sustained, apparently, according to eyewitnesses, one of the heaviest bombing rains. He was told that there were no casualties, or at least very few, and indeed a Taliban official speaking inside Kabul yesterday said that there were no casualties. So we will wait to see that, and that clearly will be the defining thing for the street in this part of the world. Judy?
All right, Christiane Amanpour reporting from Islamabad, and of course we are going to be watching as the daylight hours wear on to see just how many civilian casualties there have been. Aaron.
Judy, we've covered everybody but Chris Burns, who's with the Northern Alliance in the northern part of Afghanistan. Chris, it's important in the military plan that the Northern Alliance soldiers carry out a lot of the dirty groundwork. Are they ready?
Well, they say they're ready. Of course, they've been repeatedly described as a ragtag band of soldiers with ex-Soviet equipment, aging Soviet equipment. And that is why what happened last night was just what the Northern Alliance was waiting for. They were waiting for a U.S. airstrike that would perhaps literally level the playing field so they could advance. Now they're holding off to see exactly what kind of damage was done, but certainly from the flashes of light, the explosions that shook the air this far away were about 20 kilometers, 15 miles from the front line, and about 70 kilometers, 45 miles north of Kabul. But we heard and saw quite a bit last night from 9 p.m. until 3 a.m. Targeting radar, air defenses, air bases in the north and the south. Obviously a coordinated action. Some of the very important points for the Northern Alliance were, one, the MiG jets. Now these are MiG aging Soviet fighter jets. A handful of them but some of them are effective in striking at Northern Alliance positions. In fact, we saw 2 of them drop bombs not far from where we were in the last few days. So that was a worry of the Northern Alliance. They have to see if those MiGs were struck out, were knocked out. Another very important part was Mazar-e-Sharif. That is a strategic northern city that the Taliban hold, that the Northern Alliance has been fighting for days now in an offensive to try to get closer to. Mazar-e-Sharif has 2 air bases that the Northern Alliance says were struck by what is believed cruise missiles, because locals, they say, did not hear any airplanes. All they heard were explosions. They believe those attacks were accurate. Also, along the Uzbek border, it's believed that where there was a buildup of Taliban troops, it's believed that those troops were dispersed by attacks, coordinated attacks throughout the north by the Northern Alliance and by the U.S. And British airstrikes. Aaron?
Chris, thanks. Chris Burns in the northern part of Afghanistan with the Northern Alliance. Thank you very much. Covered a lot of ground in the first 21 minutes of this 2-hour special report. We have much more still to come. Up next, the generals, the strategy, the dangers, and more.
Here you go, little guy.
Irene, take this.
What?
It's me, Roger.
Roger?
I know. I came back as a monkey. Come back next Tuesday. I make a killing on Tuesdays. And next time, wear that red dress I like.
How will you support your family after you pass away? Conseco's life insurance policies can give your loved ones a regular monthly paycheck. Conseco, step up.
That weekend is good. See you then.
Going away for a weekend? Then live like a high roller. Go from your hotel to the movies, the shopping malls, and the sports bars.
I thought you liked to eat caviar and watch polo.
Not in this economy.
With Courtyard Come Out and Play rates, you can make the most of your weekend plans.
We'll send you a postcard.
Yeah, whatever.
Call 1-800-MARRIOTT. Courtyard, your Marriott awaits.
Moo.
It's a great feeling to be upgraded from a regular room to a luxury suite. Well, now you can get that same feeling when you buy a Gateway computer. Because right now, when you buy a Gateway 300X featuring the Intel Celeron processor, Gateway will give you 2 free upgrades. We'll double your memory and give you a printer free. And everything's just $9.99. Don't you just love upgrades? Offer ends November 18th, so stop by or call 1-800-GATEWAY today.
Going to where the story is and bringing it home from the front lines. Christian Amanpour, another reason why you can depend on CNN.
Discussing a man's sexual behavior is always a very discreet topic. This commercial talks about NRX, a safe, natural alternative to prescription drugs when you want that extra burst of sexual energy.
Are you one of the millions of American males who would like increased sexual energy when you need it most? NRX is the answer.
Clinical studies show various ingredients of NRX to enhance sexual energy and performance when taken on a regular basis.
You'll enjoy your newfound energy the natural way, without chemicals. We're so sure you and your mate will be completely satisfied, we'll offer you a 30-day, no questions asked, full refund.
But now, it's like about every single day.
It's great. Call now and take advantage of our special television offer.
Call in the next 10 minutes and find out how you can get a 1-month supply of NRX free. Take advantage of our special TV offer. Call 1-800-659-2979.
This is CNN.
The president has repeatedly said this is a complicated war, that it's military, that it's economic, and it's diplomatic. On the diplomatic side, we've talked a lot since September 11th with former UN Ambassador Richard Holbrooke. Ambassador Holbrooke joins us tonight from New York. Ambassador, it's nice to talk to you again.
Good to be with you, Aaron.
By all accounts, things went pretty well on Sunday. Assuming things go pretty well from here on out, what's the sort of best case you can lay out in the Afghanistan scenario?
I've thought a lot about this, Aaron, since I talked to you earlier today. You know, the best case for us now, and the military launch is obviously correct, and we all support it. The best case would be a relatively quick military success in dispersing the Taliban. That should not be the hardest objective we face. They're a motley group of mullahs and militia. They're not a real government. But after that, this Northern Alliance, and Chris Bury's report, I think, illustrated that. This Northern Alliance is not going to be the governing force in Afghanistan. It's from the wrong ethnic group, and it can't extend. So we are going to end up having to reach some kind of internationally backed, UN-backed effort to take care of Afghanistan. Now, the last time we went through this, it was the Cold War. This time around, the Russians, the Pakistanis, the Chinese, the whole UN community and the Europeans ought to back us on this, but we're going to we need to start looking at what happens in Afghanistan, because we can't allow another vacuum to take place.
Well, but you know, there's that old saying about history and those who don't pay attention to it. This is precisely what happened, isn't it, after the Soviets left, that the Americans who had been engaged in trying to drive the Soviets out, once that was accomplished, walked away.
Yes.
The argument here that you're making is that for a variety of reasons, the West, or the world, however you want to phrase it, can't walk away.
We have an extraordinarily difficult situation. There are very few countries on earth as remote and difficult as Afghanistan. And it's much tougher than Bosnia or Kosovo or even East Timor, areas I've worked in the last year, all of which the UN's heavily involved in. But if we walk away from the area again, as we did in 1989, and you're absolutely right in what you just said, the vacuum that's caused will again be filled by the wrong kind of people. So I'm proposing that we start talking now about the post-Taliban coalition. I hope centered around the 86-year-old king, at least as a figurehead, who lives in Rome, and that we get the international community, including China, Russia, and the European Union, to back a UN-centered operation of the sort we did in Bosnia and Kosovo. However, two things need to be stressed. One, this will help us get Osama bin Laden, but it doesn't guarantee it, because no government in the capital of Kabul will be able to comb every cave in the south. And two, and this is the big critical variable we have to underscore, none of this will mean that our homeland security is assured, because this network is not run by some guy with a cell phone in a cave in Afghanistan directly. He may be its inspirational leader. He clearly is. But this thing is being run with cells in Hamburg, Germany, and within 10 miles of where you and I are sitting now, there are sympathizers in New York, Atlanta, and Washington.
Ambassador, on that point, if you will, a little bit later in this hour, we're going to play a large chunk of the bin Laden statement today, but just, I'm sure you've heard it, or at least read the quotes out of it. Tell me your take on it and how the rest of us ought to process it.
First of all, he is in effect taking credit for what happened, as I understand it. He's not explicitly saying he did it, but he's praising the people who did it. He's taking ownership of the process. He's undermining the people in the Islamic world who said that it wasn't a Muslim group. And most interestingly, he is in effect taking the dark side of the same position President Bush said. President Bush said in his extraordinarily effective speech of the joint session of Congress, you're either for us or against us. Osama bin Laden has in effect accepted the challenge and said, yeah, you're either for us or against us. That leads to a very important point, which is that in the long term we will succeed or fail to the extent that we do not allow this to become Islam against the West. And that, of course, President Bush has been extremely effective in his visit to the Islamic Center and other efforts, and so have other people. But it's going to be a very tricky business. I saw earlier that the American government has closed down its embassy, at least temporarily, in Saudi Arabia. I saw on your screen, if that is true, and that's the first time I heard that, that's not a very good sign, because we are going to need the support of all these regimes. Now, as Henry Kissinger said, Aaron, as Henry said, as Kissinger said to you in your interview with him this afternoon, the Arab leaders who can't publicly support us want us to succeed here, but it's going to be very, very critical that we do so.
Ambassador Holbrooke, it's good to talk to you again. Thank you. We'll see you
Aaron,
back.
it's great to talk to you.
Thank you. We'll see you back in New York, sir. Thank you very much. Richard Holbrooke, we have much more ahead on this special report. We'll be right back.
They say the new car has powers magical. They say once you sit inside, you turn into a different person. In this car, I wish to ride.
The all-new Lexus ES 300, a new world of luxury.
Point. Shoot. Create. The HP Digital Photo Studio, featuring the Pavilion 7970 with the Intel Pentium 4 processor. How will you use it? Save up to $250 by mail on HP digital photography products.
Dad, are we there yet?
No.
Saya figure lemon.
Kalau sa lemon, o kono sa puma. Great. Kita kala karong kita kala ko. O mun nato ko panya ko ba ka
Family vacation on the wings of Goodyear.
We are back, man. That was possibly the finest rock and roll show I have ever seen. I Smell World Tour.
Wow. You mean the whole world?
Yeah. You're not Gene. You're not Paul. You guys aren't Kiss.
No, but we did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
Stay smart. Stay at a Holiday Inn Express.
From the tragedy of the terrorist attacks to the reaction across our country.
This military action is a part of our campaign against terrorism.
And overseas.
I cannot disclose, obviously, how long this action will last.
Depend on CNN for the facts, the issues, and the human side of this drama. For the most comprehensive coverage of America's new war, depend on CNN.
Judy joins us from Washington again as we spend some time now taking a look at the military strategy today and in the tomorrows ahead. We're joined by former General Wesley Clark, who's with us here in Atlanta, and retired Major General, Air Force General Don Shepard in Washington. General Clark, if I may begin, it seemed to me that today was the day when the United States fought this on its terms, its best weapons against the other guy's weakest weapons. Fair to say it gets more complicated from here.
That's exactly right. This is the doctrinal opening stage of an air campaign. We go after his integrated air defense system such as it was. The airfields, the air defense radars, the air defense missiles, the command and control centers. We take down the electricity that feeds these. We may take out some of the radio stations that support his command and control or his psychological control over the population. And if we can, we strike troop concentrations on the ground. It's the opening play, and we hold all the cards at this stage.
But, I mean, there's a but in there, isn't it?
There's a big but.
Yeah.
Because it's not clear that this is decisive in and of itself. And so to accomplish the tasks on the ground, as the Secretary of Defense indicated, that we've got to get some movement on the ground. The Northern Alliance has to take advantage of this. We've got to somehow convert our superiority, our supremacy in the air, into some combat advantage, some combat power advantage on the ground for the Northern Alliance.
Judy, the generals are yours.
Well, I want to ask General Shepard, when are we going to know whether what happened today has made a difference?
Well, it's not going to be tomorrow, Judy. Tomorrow we will take the daylight hours and the good weather that's there right now to take a look at what we call BDA, or bomb damage assessment, to see if we hit the targets that we were after, and then perhaps to retarget them. But this is going to be a long, long campaign. It may be many days, many weeks before we know if we have really weakened the Taliban, which is clearly the reason for these strikes today.
General Clark, what signs do you look for to determine whether you've been successful or not?
Well, in the first case, we want to take care of the integrated air defense system. So we'd expect to see no aircraft flying. We'd expect to look at the runways and see the runways are cratered. We'd expect to see the troop concentrations that we attacked dispersed. We'd expect to see some damaged and destroyed equipment left on the battlefield. But then what we're going to be looking for is his command and control. What does the Taliban do next? Do they fall back in confusion? Do they simply hunker down and hold? And then what can the Northern Alliance do to take advantage of the overwhelming combat power we can bring to bear from the air? Will they start a war of maneuver? Will they try to retake Kabul? Will they move toward the Uzbekistan border and box off the Taliban force that's there? How exactly will they take advantage of this to break the Taliban's power?
And are those things that are going to be immediately obvious, or what?
I think that's really the question, is how soon will we be able to see some change in the forces on the ground that shows we were successful or not? And if we're very effective in targeting, we could see some impact very quickly. If the targets are more difficult, it doesn't seem to register on the Taliban, the losses, or if the Northern Alliance doesn't have the command and control and the planning and the stocks of ammunition and the leadership at small unit level to take advantage of whatever weakness we create in the Taliban, then it'll take a lot longer, because there'll be an effort undertaken by someone to buttress the Northern Alliance.
General Shepard, a very wise general suggested to me the other day that there are only so many quality targets for the pilots to hit in Afghanistan. At some point, U.S. forces run out, and then what?
Well, there's a difference between quality targets and important targets. Quality targets we're used to thinking of as bridges, large troop concentrations, large electricity plants, that type of thing. But the integrated air defense system that General Clark referred to is a very important target. We must put that down before we can do the humanitarian airlift that we wish to do. We must put it down before we can weaken the Taliban. So it's going to be, again, it's going to be a long, long campaign, Aaron, and there's a lot of important targets before we can gain total air superiority and go in at will and start plinking away at individual tanks, anti-aircraft pieces, that type of thing, which we will do.
General Shepard and Clark, thanks again. You've been terrific today. You've educated us all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aaron.
When we come back, perhaps the most wanted man in the world speaks, Osama.
In the new economy, there is no such thing as an 18 to 49-year-old, or a senior, or a boomer, or a dink. In the new economy, customers aren't generalizations. They are what they want, when they want it. And if you want to make them loyal customers, you need an e-business solution that puts everything you know about them in one place. SAP.
Even though you might not know Delphi Automotive Systems, we're probably in your garage right now. You see, chances are we're in your vehicles, having developed the first in-dash car radio and production airbag, not to mention the future innovations that will revolutionize the way you drive. With 36 countries and growing, we're practically everywhere. Even though you may not see us. Delphi Automotive Systems, driving tomorrow's technology.
change for $1?
Sure.
Introducing the all-new Chevy Avalanche. The only vehicle that changes from an SUV to a pickup.
Thanks.
Chevy Avalanche, like a rock.
Thank you.
Save now during Pella's replacement window and door sale. Visit the Pella showroom nearest you. Pella, viewed to be the best.
How well do you know your dog? You can't always tell when your dog is feeling pain. In fact, 1 out of 5 dogs slows down from painful arthritis. Don't let your dog suffer needlessly. There are safe and effective medications. See your veterinarian for an arthritis exam and ask whether a leading pain reliever is right for your dog.
About the middle of the afternoon, Al Jazeera, the Mideast television network or station, released a tape of Osama bin Laden. There he was, rifles at his side, making his case, issuing his threats. It was positively chilling. We don't know when that tape was made. It looked like it was made in daylight, though, which would make it sometime before the attacks. Beyond that, it is just a guess. Here's what the most wanted man in the world had to say, translated into English.
I believe that there is no God but Allah, and I believe that Muhammad is his messenger. This is America. God has touched it by a wound which has destroyed its greatest buildings, and thank God for that. And this is America filled with fear, from north to south, from east to west. So thank God for that. And what America is tasting now is something very little of what we have tasted for tens of years. Our nation for 80 years is tasting this humiliation, its sons being killed, and its holy places getting attacked, and nobody is hearing. And when God has guided a group, pioneers of Islam, God has helped them to destroy America. I pray to God that to lift them up to the highest position. When those people defended their people, the whole world has been outraged. Children being killed until this minute, killed in Iraq without anything they have committed. And we never heard anybody. We never hear any fatwa. And these days, the Israeli tanks enters Palestine in Jenin, Ramallah, Rafah, Beit Jala, and other places of Islam, and we never hear anybody who talks about it and takes action. So when the sword came after 80 years against America, then the voice of appeasement has been loud, lamenting the victims of America. Those people have supported the butcher against the victim. I say that the situation is clear, so that any Muslim, after what happened and after what many officials in the United States, headed by Bush, and they came out with their men and with their equipment, and they have encouraged the countries claiming to be Muslims against us. They came out to fight Islam. By the name of terrorism. People in Japan, hundreds of thousands of people, young and old, killed in Japan. This is not a crime. 1 million people killed in Iraq. This is not a crime. But when a few tens of them killed in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam, Afghanistan was hit, Iraq was hit. I say these events have split the whole world into two camps, camp of belief and a camp of disbelief, so that every Muslim should come out to fight for his religion. The winds of change has been blowing now. And to America I say to it, and to its nation, I swear by God, America shall never enjoy, nor those who live in America will never enjoy peace unless we enjoy it in Palestine, and before all the disbelievers leave our holy land.
Osama bin Laden speaking to the world. Clearly he knew that Americans would hear his words today, as well as the rest of the Islamic world would hear them as well. The focus was on bin Laden, obviously, and we'll spend some time in a few moments talking more about what he said and who he is. But the tape also shows us two other central players. Osama bin Laden may be the face on the wanted poster, but he's not the only face that matters. Mike Betcher tonight on who's who and why they matter.
This most recent tape gives a clear indication of the top corporate structure. In the middle, the CEO, Osama bin Laden. At his side, his most trusted advisor, Ayman al-Zawahiri. And next to him, his military commander, Mohammed Atef. But like any corporate meeting, it begins with remarks from the group's media spokesman, a new face belonging to a man named Suleiman Abu Ghaid. After his denunciation of the United States in the West, al-Zawahiri spoke.
America has committed many crimes against the nation of Muslims, unbearable and nobody could bear. America is the head of criminals.
Al-Zawahiri is 50, an Egyptian surgeon involved in radical Islamic politics since his teens. He was jailed for conspiracy after Anwar Sadat's assassination. He first met bin Laden in 1987 when both men fought against the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan. Al-Zawahiri heads Egypt's Al-Jihad group, which has effectively merged with Al-Qaeda. Like bin Laden, he is a wanted man for his role in the 1998 U.S. Embassy bombings. Al-Zawahiri's reputation is a man who influenced bin Laden and a man who may be the real mastermind behind these and other attacks. Not speaking, but very important, Mohammed Atef. Like al-Zawahiri, he's Egyptian, a former policeman who met bin Laden during the war against the Soviets. Atef is now related to bin Laden by marriage.
He was really no one, and he was propelled into someone who has a tremendous importance in the organization as the head of the military command, military operations for the organization.
All three men were seen on another videotape released just 3 days before this one. Again, it isn't clear when either tape was shot. What is striking is how stable the inner workings of al-Qaeda are. These same three men can be seen in a photo from 1998 at a press conference just months before the embassy bombings.
He has a special style. That style is not to claim credit after the fact, but to put the West on notice that he's about to do an operation.
A reminder, perhaps, that when Osama bin Laden goes public, it is often not just a sign of defiance, but of things to come. Mike Betcher, CNN, Atlanta.
When we come back, we'll talk more about what Osama bin Laden just said. We'll be right back.
Passion for journalism, compassion for the story. Start your news day with Paula Zahn. Another reason why you can depend on CNN.
Discussing a man's sexual behavior is always a very discreet topic. This commercial talks about NRX, a safe, natural alternative to prescription drugs when you want that extra burst of sexual energy.
Are you one of the millions of American males who would like increased sexual energy when you need it most? NRX is the answer.
Clinical studies show various ingredients of NRX to enhance sexual energy and performance when taken on a regular basis.
You'll enjoy your newfound energy the natural way, without chemicals. We're so sure you and your mate will be completely satisfied, we'll offer you a 30-day, no questions asked, full refund.
But now, it's like about every single day.
It's great. Call now and take advantage of our special television offer.
Call in the next 10 minutes and find out how you can get a 1-month supply of NRX free. Take advantage of our special TV offer. Call 1-800-659-2979.
10 years ago, she matched wits with the world's most dangerous mind.
Hello.
Hello, Clarice. Now, her nightmare is starting again.
He's killed 14 people.
Are you ready?
Yes.
I'm sure we'll have a lot of fun.
Don't do this. Turn yourself into me.
Not in 1,000 years. Good evening.
Dr. Lecter.
Hannibal.
Playing this month on Blockbuster Ticket, only on DirecTV.
18 dancing trees, 5 jocks, 9 musical acts, 10 celebrity profiles, 27 flips, kicks, and headbangs, 2 films.
Well, I'm in love.
7 chances to laugh, 52 places to find a bargain, 1 love boat, 1 band video, and that was just yesterday.
This is CNN.
She's not your daughter, but if you give her a ride home after school, she might as well be. Carpooling on the wings of Goodyear.
We just heard that excerpt of Osama bin Laden from that videotape released today. Let's talk some more about that right now with CNN terrorism expert Peter Bergen, who's been writing a book about Osama bin Laden. Peter, if we had any questions about why Osama bin Laden and his network did this, he answered it, didn't he?
Yes, that was a very explicit answer to why he is attacking America. Obviously, the two things that he mentioned prominently were the continued American support for Israel, which in his view is too much, and also the continued U.S. Bombing campaigns against Iraq and the sanctions that have been in place against Iraq previously, which in his mind have killed hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilians.
Well, but isn't there some inconsistency there? Has he always had this feeling of affinity for Palestine and the Palestinian cause?
That's something that's emerged more strongly recently, not only in the statements that we just saw today, but also in a tape that circulated earlier this summer. He started talking about Palestine and Israel more than he talked about in the past. Previously, his principal gripe had been the continued presence of American troops in Saudi Arabia. Interestingly, he didn't reference that today.
You've been studying him for some time, Peter. Are you at all surprised to hear him talk about this translation says millions. In any event, he was saying many, many innocent children are being killed in Iraq because of the sanctions mainly imposed by the United States. Were you aware that he felt that strongly about this?
That's something that he's said many times since 1996, 1997, when he first started giving interviews. And that's one of his principal gripes against the United States. How does he justify these attacks on innocent civilians? He justifies it in a way, a simple revenge. The United States, in his mind, has killed a lot of innocent Muslim civilians, and this is just, as he says, tasting the same bitter fruit that we have tasted.
And he even brings up Japan, and he talks about the American nuclear attacks on Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and goes on to say, and we believe that's what he's referencing, these people were killed by their hundreds of thousands, young and old. It was not considered a war crime. So
he made that same observation to Peter Arnett and myself when we interviewed him in 1997 for CNN. So this is an old theme. None of the themes in this thing are new in a sense. These are recapitulation of his principal gripes.
But I think the bitterness that is inside the man comes through when you listen to this.
And I think the confidence. I mean, he well understood that this was going to be broadcast in the United States many times. It's a way of getting his message out in a way that he knew would get out.
Do you have any sense from watching this, Peter, when it was taped?
Well, my speculation is that it must have been taped several days ago, because obviously it was taped in a remote part of Afghanistan, then would have had to have got out of the country in some method. So sometime in the last several days, probably.
All right, Peter Bergen, thanks very much. And now back to Aaron in Atlanta.
Judy, tomorrow morning, this nation will see its first head of Homeland Defense get sworn in, Tom Ridge. When we come back, we'll take a look at what's being done about Homeland Defense and talk with 3 mayors who are trying to defend their cities. This special report continues in a moment.
The magic's gone, isn't it? You need a table for 2. And a bubble bath. And some champagne.
That'll work.
Marriott Come Out and Play rates make this a great weekend to rekindle the flame.
Can you make me irresistible? Yeah.
Call 1-800-MARRIOTT. Marriott Hotels, Resorts, and Suites. Your Marriott awaits.
Okay, sweetie, on your toes. Swing through the ball. Through it. Eye on the ball, hun. We're working on the forehand. Okay, let's try backhand. We'll work backhand. Okay, you just need to connect with the ball. Let's stay in the game, sweetheart. Now, don't be afraid to charge the net.
How do you plan on financing your retirement? Conseco's annuities have tax advantages that can help. Conseco, step up.
All these technologies and more. Building a better world. Hitachi. Inspire the next.
America trusts America Online to make everything easy.
It's just real simple to keep in touch with AOL.
Oh, I love hearing you've got mail.
Instant messages are so much fun.
And now AOL makes it easier to get health information with WebMD.
I discovered WebMD.
WebMD is America's leading source of health information online. Communities on everything from diabetes to weight loss.
Love the